Hi, I'm Rebecca Roy, and I manage the Interpreter Program for Vermont State Parks, and I'm here today at beautiful Brighton State Park in Island Pond, Vermont. And today we're going to explore how plants and animals have survived turbulent times in this place and built resiliency and deep roots in the landscape. One thing that's really unique about Brighton State Park is that we have the uncommon Boreal Forest here. Now, worldwide, the Boreal Forest is the most common plant community, but in Vermont, it's very rare. And as you probably know, our most common tree is a sugar maple, right? That's across the state, but in this part of the state, in this special part of the Northeast Kingdom, we have less sugar maples. And what makes the Boreal Forest so interesting is that it's growing here because the soils are very acidic and not high quality in nutrients. What happened in this area and in all of Vermont is that a huge ice sheet, a glacier, scraped away everything. And if you want to learn more about glaciers, you can look at our other video that we did to see a demonstration of a glacier clearing the landscape. So here, the glacier scraped everything away, and then the bedrock is very acidic. And so what we have here in Essex County, Vermont, is a very thin acidic soil with not a lot of nutrients. And because of that, we have this very unique plant community, which is the Boreal Forest. And what you can find here are red spruce, black spruce, and fir trees. If you've ever seen a spruce tree, they have needles, which are small little leaves. And they hang on to these needles year round. They do shed them periodically. They'll hang on to them for 2 or 3 years. And this gives them the edge because these needles, unlike our broadleaf trees, the needles are wax covered, and so they hold in the moisture that the tree needs to survive, so it doesn't totally dry out in the cold weather like your lips might dry out on a windy day when you're ice fishing on Island Pond. They don't dry out, and on warm winter days when it's a little bit warmer, you know, not the 30 below that we sometimes experience, but like today it's 20 degrees, the sun is out. These conifers, the needled trees, they can make food year round, and that's what helps them grow and thrive in this place that otherwise is a very difficult place for plants to grow. So they're very unique in this way. Have you ever had your lettuce that you bought in your refrigerator and it freezes? What happens? It turns to slime. The cell walls in the lettuce just break down and it completely turns into slime. For these conifer trees, they actually kick the water out of their cells, and so the freezing that happens in their needles and in their twigs, it's happening outside of the cell walls, in between the cells, and that's what keeps them from turning into that slimy lettuce in the back of the refrigerator. So they have adaptations that allow them to live on the edge. The soil is really thin, really acidic. There's not a lot of nutrients available, but they can still survive here. And we have some really cool things in the landscape here, including black spruce bogs nearby. And they're really, really acidic, low in nutrients, but these unique plants can grow here really well. And they provide the habitat for some really unique animals too. Have you ever heard of a lynx? These are wild cats that look similar to bobcats, but they're bigger, they have longer legs, and they have huge, puffy, furry feet to help them walk around in this very snowy landscape. Those big wild cats need to be able to walk on top of the snow, and that's why they have those gigantic feet. And there are sometimes sightings of lynx around the state, but most of the sightings happen here in Essex County up in the Northeast Kingdom. So we know that this unique habitat provides the perfect environment for lynx. And there's another really cool animal that lives in Vermont only here because of this special habitat that exists, which is the spruce grouse. You may have seen a relative of the spruce grouse, the ruffed grouse, in the community where you live, because they tend to live in those open hardwood mixed forests that we see in most of Vermont. And if you're walking through the woods and you hear this exciting, scary explosion of a bird coming out of the understory, that's a ruffed grouse popping up, trying to get away. That's their reaction when people come along. Spruce grouse are completely different demeanor, and I spotted one here at Brighton State Park once, very close to here along the trails, and it was just feeding in this area along the trail, just hanging out. And I waited for a while. I was very excited, of course, and then I was looking at my watch thinking, oh gosh, I got to get on to the next thing, and I had to skirt way around the bird to move along my way because it wasn't going to move at all. So spruce grouse really don't have that same reaction to human presence. So it's really cool to see them, and you should look for them the next time you come to Brighton State Park. They are really well adapted to this same environment because they have feathers all the way down over their feet. For the same reason the lynx has the furry feet, it allows them to walk on the snow, and it also keeps their feet warm because they're living in this really cold, harsh environment. So because of the unique landscape here, we have really unique plant communities and animals living here at Brighton State Park. There's another really unique plant community here on the edge of Spectacle Pond at Brighton State Park, which is a natural red pine community. And this is a state-designated natural area because natural red pine stands are incredibly rare. There's only 89 across Vermont. We have other red pine stands, but they were planted by the Civilian Conservation Corps. And the difference there is that when you see a CCC planted red pine stand, it's all planted in rows. And so you walk through and you see rows of trees. And as you can see here at Brighton, the red pines are growing in a very natural, kind of scattered way. And the unique thing about red pines, and the reason why we don't have a lot of them naturally growing in Vermont, is because they require a seed bed that is just sandy bottom seed bed. And we know that these red pines are between 75 and 90 years old. They're all the same age, so we can assume that they grew at the same time. And what happened most likely was that there was a fire here. A wildfire burned all the plants that were here, and so it was just mineral soil. And that allowed the red pines to germinate, which means the plants to start growing from seed, and so they all grew up at the same time. Red pines grow really tall and really fast. And one thing that's extra special about this red pines community is that the state record big red pine tree is here, which means it is the biggest red pine in the state of Vermont. And that tree is 103 feet tall. And if you have ever climbed up the fire tower at Mount Olga at Molly Stark State Park, this tree is twice as tall as that fire tower. And I don't know about you, but when I'm climbing up that fire tower, I feel like it goes on and on forever. This tree is twice as tall as that fire tower. And the tree is 8 feet around in circumference. So I would need a friend to put my arms around it. So if you picture like two of me with my arms around the tree, that's how big around that tree is. So this is another example of a really unique plant community that wouldn't be here if not for the unique topography and the soils that we have at Brighton State Park. To identify red pine from white pine, which is a pretty common tree, that forest tree that we have that's also very tall, the bark is reddish and looks like puzzle pieces stuck together, and the needles are in packets of 2. White pine, the needles are in packets of 5. So if you see needles in packets of 2 and they're longer and stiffer, and that red puzzle-like bark, you know that it is a red pine. And all of these really special, unique plant communities that we have here at Brighton State Park provide a beautiful scenic place for you to come and visit with your friends and family. There are campsites right on Spectacle Pond. There are lean-tos that you can rent and cabins, and there's even an additional day-use beach on Island Pond. And come for yourself and explore and see if you can find the state recognized big red pine tree, explore the red pine stand, or come and explore the Boreal Forest, as you can see behind me here on the edge of Spectacle Pond. And come and see for yourself how all these plants and animals have overcome adversity and dug in and had deep roots develop in this really unique habitat here at Brighton State Park.